Have you ever looked at those double-digit dividend yields on certain stocks and wondered why everyone isn't just retiring on a beach somewhere? A 12% yield looks absolutely amazing on a calculator. You punch in the numbers, realize you only need $400,000 to generate $48,000 a year, and suddenly, living off dividends feels totally within reach. But when we look at the history of high-yield investing, chasing those massive payouts straight out of the gate can lead to shrinking portfolios and slashed incomes. Today, we're unpacking a different approach. A slower, mathematically grounded strategy centered on a metric most beginners completely skip over. We are going to break down how dividend compounding actually works over time, without the hype, and look at the mechanics of replacing an income. Welcome to Grow with Tony. Simple money lessons for education only, not financial advice. Let's start by looking at the trap that catches a lot of well-meaning investors. When people start planning for dividend income, they usually figure out their annual living expenses and try to reverse engineer the math. If you need $48,000 a year to cover your life, and you look at a broad market index fund yielding around the low single digits, the math is pretty brutal. At roughly 1.5%, you would need over $3 million invested just to hit your target. For the vast majority of people, that number is discouraging. So, the natural reaction is to look for a faster route. Investors start screening for covered call ETFs, certain high-risk REITs, or distressed stocks paying 10, 12, or even 15%. But a dividend yield is simply an equation, the annual payout divided by the current stock price. If a company is paying a $1 dividend and the stock is trading at $10, the yield is 10%. But if that business starts losing market share, taking on bad debt, and failing fundamentally, investors may sell off. The stock drops to $5. Suddenly, that exact same $1 dividend mathematically represents a 20% yield. That massive yield isn't a reward for finding a hidden gem. Often, it is a risk premium. It is the broader market pricing in a higher chance that the dividend may be cut. If that cut happens, the stock price can take another severe dive. The investor gets hit twice, losing expected income and taking a large loss on initial capital. It's a mathematical illusion, not necessarily a fundamental strength. If high current yields are often a risk premium and low yields require a much larger portfolio, the alternative lies in focusing on the future rather than the present. This involves a metric called yield on cost. Let's run a comparison to see how this actually plays out over a realistic timeline. Imagine two different investments. Company A is a mature, slow-moving telecom business. It offers a very tempting 7% dividend yield today, but the business isn't growing much anymore. Company B is a healthy, expanding consumer brand. It only offers a 3% yield today, but the underlying business is growing its revenue and its dividend payout by roughly 10% a year. An investor optimizing for immediate cash buys Company A. An investor looking at the long-term mechanics buys Company B. Let's say you invest $10,000 into both. In year one, Company A pays you $700. Company B pays you $300. Company A feels like the clear winner. But let's play the tape forward. Because Company B is expanding its free cash flow, it continues to raise its dividend payout by 10% annually. By year 10, the payout on your original shares from Company B has compounded. You are no longer making $300 a year. You are making close to $780 a year. Your yield, based on your original $10,000 investment, your yield on cost, has grown from 3% to nearly 8%. By year 20, assuming that 10% annual dividend growth actually holds, your yield on cost crosses 20%. You are receiving over $2,000 a year in cash from that original $10,000 investment. Meanwhile, Company A is still paying that flat $700, and 20 years of inflation has eroded what that $700 can actually buy. You aren't buying the yield of today. You are trying to acquire an expanding cash flow machine. But the timeline changes significantly. When we introduce the reinvestment phase, if you are still in your working years and don't need to spend that dividend income to pay for groceries, you can use a dividend reinvestment plan, or DRIP. When dividends are automatically used to purchase more shares of the underlying stock or fund, those new shares can generate their own future dividends. It's an exponential curve, but human psychology struggles with exponential curves because they start out incredibly flat. During the first 3 to 5 years, reinvesting dividends can feel completely unproductive. Your $300 in annual dividends might buy you only a few extra shares for the entire year, depending on the share price. The visual progress is minimal, but when you map the process over a 10 to 15-year horizon, you can start to see why reinvestment matters. Eventually, the growing dividends from your accumulating shares may begin buying meaningful extra shares without requiring the same amount of new cash from your paycheck. The portfolio begins to develop its own momentum. To actually execute this, identifying the right vehicles is crucial. Yield on cost only works if the business survives and thrives for decades. There are 3 analytical filters that help separate sustainable growers from future yield traps. The first filter is the payout ratio. This tracks how much of a company's profit is being distributed as dividends. For a standard corporation, investors often want to see room between profits and dividends, because that room helps the company reinvest, reduce debt, and handle downturns. If a company is paying out most of its earnings, there may be very little margin of safety. Now, context matters here. Real estate investment trusts, or REITs, and utility companies can operate under different business, legal, or tax structures, so their payout ratios may look very different from a normal operating company. The point is not to memorize one universal number. The point is to ask whether the payout is actually supported. The second filter is a history of supported growth. Looking at a company's 5-year and 10-year dividend growth rate can help, but the dividend growth only matters if it is backed by expanding free cash flow. If inflation is eating away at purchasing power, a tiny dividend raise may not be enough. But if a company's revenue is flat, and management is raising the dividend by taking on debt just to keep a streak alive, the foundation is cracking. The dividend must be a reflection of true business strength, not financial theater. The third filter is competitive advantage. Warren Buffett often talks about this as an economic moat. If you are going to hold a company through multiple economic cycles to let the compounding math work, the business model must be resilient. High switching costs, regulatory barriers, essential services, trusted brands, or network effects can all matter. When a company holds a strong market position, market corrections may be less emotionally frightening. And if you are reinvesting dividends during a market pullback, those reinvested dividends may buy shares at lower prices, which can accelerate your future yield on cost if the business remains healthy. The primary hurdle with this approach isn't the mathematics, it is the execution and the psychology. We are constantly bombarded with financial media highlighting overnight success stories and rapid market movements. Staring at daily portfolio fluctuations often leads to emotional decision-making. The dividend growth approach requires a shift in perspective. Instead of tracking only the total account value and tying your financial confidence to whether the broader market is red or green on a Tuesday, the focus shifts to tracking whether the annual dividend income is growing for healthy reasons. It changes the mindset from a speculator hoping an asset price appreciates to a fractional business owner collecting a share of the profits. If the broader market experiences a 20% correction, the portfolio value drops. But if the underlying businesses are fundamentally sound dividend growers, the actual cash flow generated by the portfolio may hold up better than the share price. It may even continue growing. That is not guaranteed, but it is the kind of behavior dividend growth investors are trying to build toward. Building a sustainable income stream is a methodical process. It requires passing on the immediate gratification of risky high yields and focusing on the slow, deliberate expansion of yield on cost. And this is where the retirement shortcut gets misunderstood. The shortcut is not finding the biggest payout today. The shortcut is giving a strong business reinvested cash flow and enough time the chance to compound together. That is much less exciting on day one, but it can be much more powerful over a long period than chasing whatever yield looks biggest on a screen. So before you buy a dividend investment for retirement income, ask 3 questions. First, is this yield high because the business is strong or because the price has fallen and the market is worried? Second, is the dividend growing because the business is producing more cash or because management is stretching to keep investors calm? Third, if I reinvest this dividend for the next decade, am I building a stronger income engine or am I just buying more of the same risk? Those 3 questions keep the strategy grounded. They stop dividend investing from becoming yield chasing with better branding. Drop a comment below. Are you currently optimizing your portfolio for higher cash flow today, or are you prioritizing lower yield, higher growth assets for the future? And if you enjoy stripping away the noise to analyze the actual mechanics of long-term wealth building, subscribe so we can keep exploring these strategies together. Remember, the market doesn't pay you for constant activity. It rewards patience only when the underlying engine is worth being patient with. Keep learning, keep growing your wealth, and I'll see you in the next one.